Our sacred word is our intention of opening to the divine indwelling of God. Correct. Can you speak about the levels of prayer that we enter during the period of prayer? Well, this question is really referring us to the interior castle of St. Teresa, where there are different levels of absorption. And so once this, the Divine Spirit takes over the prayer, then you experience interior recollection, or infused recollection, as St. Teresa calls it, in which one is aware of the divine presence, but also of one's thoughts and feelings and so on. Then if it gets a little deeper, the will is grasped, and you're aware of the presence of God's love, although not always very vividly. Sometimes it's a kind of dry prayer of quiet, but you have no desire for thoughts. And so that means that you, somehow or other, your faculties are absorbed in God in a way that you don't know. When the imagination and memory also disappear, you move into a kind of state of pure consciousness where you're simply aware of the divine presence. And that also can happen, though usually briefly. Or the prayer of full union, in which there's no reflection on self at all, so that you don't even know you're in this state, okay, until it ends. Okay. So there's a complete absorption of all the faculties in God. Now this is the states of prayer as St. Teresa describes them in the interior castle. But it's important to remember that all of those exuberant experiences of mysticism are still prior to the night of spirit. And that in St. John of the Cross, he says that the same passage can be negotiated by the secret ladder of contemplation, which is the ladder of pure faith, where you don't enjoy the sense of God's presence nearly as much, and there's nothing exciting, nothing consoling, but the attraction and thirst for God keeps you faithful to the prayer. And according to John of the Cross, both of these paths wind up in the same place, in the transforming union. So it doesn't matter whether you have those things or not. If you do, you might get attached to them, and they'd actually slow down your practice. St. Teresa had a lot of them. St. John of the Cross disapproved of the amount of them that she had, and that's where they kind of parted company. She got a new spiritual director, who I don't think was nearly as good as St. John, but at least she could have her own way. So I think it's important to realize that beyond felt states of mystical prayer, there is this energy of the divine presence that gets more and more refined. And the more refined it gets, the less you feel it, the less accessible it becomes to the faculties. So that you may think that you're not in divine union, when actual fact, depending on your conduct, which is where you look for the real results, you're very far advanced, so far advanced, in fact, that the divine light is shining, but like these new waves on the spectrum of light and sound that modern physics has discovered, there's no instrument to translate that into experience. So the divine light, this is what they mean by pure faith, may be pouring itself into one and sanctifying one every moment of the day, and you have no awareness of it at all, except perhaps in the change of attitudes in daily life, greater humility, and so on. So that's why it's a mistake to aim at experiences or ecstasies or enlightenment or higher states of consciousness, because the highest state of consciousness you can never know. It's too damn high. And God is so high, so transcendent, and yet so immanent, that he can be filling us like a laser beam with light, but none of our faculties can translate that into an experience that we can enjoy or feel. And this, it seems to me, is immensely more valuable grace than the exuberant mysticism in which eventually dissolves into the dark night, and before you can be introduced into the transforming union, which is the permanent conviction of God's presence all the time, day and night, and indeed suggesting through these subtle inspirations of the Spirit what to do moment by moment. In fact, the Spirit seems to be ready to lead your life for you instead of you, if you want to try it.